Hi everyone, and thank you for watching Planting Paradise. Today I'm going to show everyone how I propagate roses. So my neighbor was actually kind enough to give me this really beautiful rose here. It's a little bit wilted now, and unfortunately I have only had great success using roses that are in full bloom, but we're going to go ahead and propagate this rose today. The mixture that I usually use is actually about 50% perlite with 50% peat. So peat is very fluffy, perlite really helps drainage. It's going to create a good mix of having good drainage and adequate aeration to allow the roots to develop properly. They don't really need as much fertilizer or nutrients in the very beginning as they're growing their roots because they don't have roots to help absorb the nutrients. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to separate it into 3 parts. I'm going to go about between 4 to 6 inches per segment here. I'm going to use my pruning shears. Don't forget, before, you definitely want to make sure that you, that you use your alcohol pad to clean the pruners off very, very well. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just cut at a slight angle right below a node. That's actually where the new roots are going to be coming in. So you definitely want to make sure that you're cutting right below here. Oops. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way up, and I'm going to cut it so that it's right below another node so I don't have to prune off any extras. Oops. I'm going to move my... Okay. We're going to do the same thing here. Okay, and very sad, but I am going to go ahead and prune this flower off. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to leave too many leaves on because if the leaves touch leave a little bit of edge of the bag, which I'm going to use for humidifying, then it is going to rot, or it's just going to have poor air circulation. So I'm going to prune off most of the leaves. I'm actually going to prune off all of the leaves from the very bottom, so I actually added an extra step there. I leave a little bit of room there. I don't cut it right flush to the stem, just in case. I don't want to introduce any more bacteria than I have to with the cuts. Alright, the same thing here. We're going to just prune this off. And again, up here, we're just going to prune off these extras. Now, if you actually notice here, there's actually some areas that the caterpillar has eaten. I actually washed this very thoroughly or rinsed it off just with water to make sure that I get any aphids or caterpillars off. I actually don't see any on here at this time. Okay, last one. Okay. Now, if you're not familiar with roses, just make sure that you know exactly how to tell where the top is from the bottom. The leaves always grow upwards, so the leaves always grow upwards, so you want to make sure that when you're putting it in the soil, you're putting it this way and not accidentally this way. And when you're pruning off the leaves, make sure that they are not you're not accidentally pruning it the other side. All right, guys, I have now finished pruning all of my cuttings. Oops. Not concerned about the whole bites at this time. They'll grow new leaves if the cutting takes. It's not gonna, I haven't found it to impact the success rate at all. So next we're gonna make our potting mix. I have, again, 50% peat and 50% perlite. Okay, and what I'm gonna do next, I have one of those food containers from the, I guess, the soups that we order from the Chinese food place. And what I do is I actually poke holes at the bottom of this. This one I had already done. I tend to reuse my containers because plants are really only in there for a very short time period, but you want to make sure there's adequate holes for drainage. And because I accidentally made a really big hole here, I'm actually going to put a coffee filter right underneath all the soil to make sure that it doesn't drain out. Alright, so I've got my coffee filter here, and I am going to go ahead and just tear off a little piece, and it does not have to be perfect, it just has to be big enough to cover the hole in the container. I'm going to go ahead and put that down here. Oops. Okay, and I'm just going to dump this in. I usually just like to fill it up to about a quarter of the way through. Sorry, it's a little messy, guys. Okay guys, so once I have my mix in this container, what I'm going to do is, peat tends to be a little bit hydrophobic when it's dry, so I do need to soak it. I normally do this beforehand, but because I want it to make it nice and pretty for you guys with the white and the peat, I mixed it in front of you. I actually filled a container that's the same size with water, and I'm just going to go ahead and let it soak. We're going to set this aside. Okay. And I actually have one that I had previously soaked already, mixed. It's ready to go. So what I'm going to do next is I've got some rooting hormone here, and I've got some water, because the hormone is actually in powder form. So we are actually going to make a hole here. I'm gonna actually put 2 in here. I don't fill it all the way is because I do like seeing the progress of the roots as it grows, and I don't want to wait too long just in case it's rotting, and I want to catch it early so it doesn't spread in case one of the stalks takes but the other one doesn't. So I made little holes here, and I'm going to go ahead and take my rose cutting. I'm going to dip it in some water, and then I'm going to go ahead and dip it here in the rooting powder. Okay. Want to get a nice thick coating. There's some antifungal properties to this, so I just like to make sure that I do too much rather than too little. You go ahead, stick it in the hole. We're going to do the same over here. Grab another one, just some water, and then push it down into the rooting hormone. Nice white coating here, and then we're just going to put it in, and then just very gently use your fingers to just push the soil around the cutting. And then I'll actually mist everything just to make sure. But here's what it looks like from the side. Here's what it looks like from the side. You can actually see, oops, that the cuttings are not touching the side. Okay, now we have our second container that I had soaking, and you can see that it is nice and wet now, so it's ready for us to use the third cutting. I only have one cutting for this container, so I'm going to go ahead and put a hole right in the middle there. Got my roots. Gonna just grab my water here. And rooting hormone, make sure it's all the way in. Nice thick coating. Little bit of extra there. I'm gonna put it in. And then same thing here, just go ahead and gently push the soil so that it is covering the root system. And then I'm actually going to show you guys how I cover the top of both to make sure that we have enough moisture and humidity to allow the roots to propagate. Okay, so now that we have everything all planted here, what we are actually going to do is we're going to provide a nice moist environment so that the leaves remain healthy while still providing some airflow, which decreases that risk of fungal infection or something rotting or molding, which is the most common way that I'll lose cuttings. You'll actually start to see some brown coming up from the bottom of the stem where it's touching the soil. So when the cutting is so small and I can actually put my hand over this, I typically use this method with a saran wrap. It's really simple. I just cut a strip of saran wrap and I actually just pop it right over. Oops. And I just take a rubber band and that's it. So I actually left 2 areas here, 1, 2, so that the air can actually move in and out, and that also means that the cuttings won't bake underneath the sun if the sun happens to shine on it, although I tend to leave it in the shade outside. So this is one method. So the other method that I use is usually if a cutting was too tall for the container, so I couldn't put my hand like this, it would actually peek out, is then I have to create almost like a moisture dome over the whole thing. So I actually use a sandwich bag. I will actually cut the square corners off here on both sides. About an inch in. I open the bag. Make sure that it's open enough and it's not stuck together. And then this fits perfectly. I just slide this one right onto this container, and I don't even need a rubber band to hold it in. You can see how much extra space that gives you if your cutting was really large. For example, I had rooted this citrus. This is actually a yuzu tree about 4 or 5 months ago. It's been a while, and it is growing its roots very well. Trying to find a little root for you there. Okay, so right here, there's a little tiny root you can see that's kind of growing through this container. This originally started out in a container that was much like this. Started out with just about an inch or so of soil on the bottom with the peat. Once it started rooting and I can see the roots growing underneath, I took it out and I put it in this plastic container so that I can monitor the root growth. And here it is growing. I actually started a different one at the same time as well. I'll just show you my citrus cuttings real quick. So that's actually that light green. It's actually all new root growth, but with this pot you can actually see the root growth. Anyways, this is how I propagate my roses. So what we'll see next is actually some rose cuttings that I started about 4 to 6 weeks ago, and they have rooted, and I'll show you how I repot them into these containers. Okay? So now that we have our cuttings all nice and potted up, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it outside in a shaded area underneath a tree, somewhere where it's going to get bright filtered light, but not direct sunlight. I also don't want it to overheat, so I just want to make sure that the hotter the weather, the more I kind of keep an eye on it, make sure that the cuttings don't dry out. If I do need to water, I don't use a watering can because I don't want the rooting hormone to wash away. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at some cuttings that I rooted about 4 to 6 weeks ago. I do see some root growth through the bottom, so we're gonna go ahead and pot them up in a container like this one, nice and clear, so that we will be able to monitor the root growth. It's a lot more room for everything to kind of grow in as well. Alright guys, so this is actually the roses that I cut and propagated about 3-4 weeks ago. They have started to root, and I can actually tell, just like I said before, there's some white roots growing. I want to quite turn it upside down, but you can kind of see that white there. That's actually the roots kind of growing through. So I can tell that I should repot it because it's not going to have much room left. It's actually a little bit more prominent on this one. As you can tell that the roots are there, and it's those white streaks there. So we're going to go ahead and take it out. I'll show you the root system, and we're going to go ahead and repot it. Okay, so first thing first is we are going to prepare our container that we're going to actually put the cuttings in. As you recall, I really like clear cups that I can cut the bottoms off of. I like to monitor the root growth, and that's why having a clear cup is really important to me. The only concern is that algae can grow in a clear atmosphere, so you can actually put this in a different cup that is opaque, so you don't have to worry about that at all. The way that I prepare my cups is I actually just go ahead and cut off the bottom here. You can see that there's that hole there now. Just go all the way around. All right, and you can see there's good drainage all the way around, and I also use very drain-friendly type of potting mix, which I've actually prepared here. I've got some organic potting mix here. You want to make sure it's not garden soil, that it's purely just potting mix. And here I have perlite to help the drainage, which is just kind of volcanic rock, and then I use a little bit of peat as well to help maintain that moisture, as well as also helping that drainage. So I bought this tray because I thought it would be really good to show you guys the potting mix, and then I realized it's actually too small to mix. I'm going to cheat and use a Ziploc bag to actually do the mixing. Alright guys, now I have prepared the 2 cups of soil, so we're going to go ahead. It's a moment of truth. I'm so excited. We're going to go ahead and take the rose out and take a look at the root system. Okay, we're going to do the pink one first. I like to just hit it a couple times on the side and just shake it out. Okay, we can see what's rooted and what has not. Guys, look at that! Oh my god! That looks amazing. Okay. And this one actually has not propagated at all, so we can certainly stick it back in. I've had propagations take months to root. But this one is definitely ready to go into its own pot. If you look right there, you can actually see where there is a collection. Oops. You can actually see where there is a collection of roots just ready to come out. That looks amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse this off so you can see the root system better. Okay guys, now it's the moment of truth for the red roses. I had it labeled here. You probably can't see it. Regardless, let's take a look, see what root system we have. So again, just kind of go around, loosen the soil a little bit. It's just that peat that we had used before. And pop it out. All right, guys, look at this one. Look at those beautiful roots that grew in just a few weeks. Amazing. And again, I'll rinse this off so you guys can see a little bit better. Let's see this one. Oh, this one is actually just starting, so I'll rinse it off, but I'm probably gonna put it in the peat base just to let it grow a little bit longer. Then our third stick. Doesn't look like there's any growth in this one yet. So, and there may not be, but this actually looks pretty healthy. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick it back in the peat base. All right guys, so you can actually see that the root system in all of these actually look really good, especially this one here. Okay. And that was actually the red one. This one is actually the pink one. I don't know if you can see that. Looks amazing. And this one is the one that just started rooting. I was gonna put it back in the peat, but I think maybe it's worth it just to go ahead and pot it in the other one. It's actually very small, just starting, but it'll definitely grow more. And I just wanted to show you guys the other one again now that I figured out the zoom. See that the root system looks really good. There's some bark and perlite that the roots actually grew around. I'm not really concerned about them. I'm going to go ahead and leave them in. And now that the roots are developed, we don't really need as much of that nutrient-free soil for starter plants. Now they're going to actually start needing some more fertilizer. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and pot them up. I'm actually going to be potting the pink ones. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and I'm actually going to make two. I'm gonna pot the bigger one first. We're gonna pot this along this side here. Okay. Just grab a little bit more. So I now have it potted. I also like to add a little bit of peat just on top a little bit, only because the perlite tends to float and also it tends to get green. So right, that's the pink one. Okay. And this is the red one. Actually forgot to pot this one. I'm going to just put it along the side so we don't interfere with the root growth of the other one. Okay, oops, sorry, got a little off-centered there. Alright guys, here's the final product of the roses that we just potted up. I did water them, and now you can see that the perlite did indeed float to the top. So both of them are ready to go ahead and grow. I originally did these for my mom, so I may give them to her the next time I see her. But if I don't, I'm gonna go ahead and update you guys in a few weeks, and hopefully we'll see a little bit more root growth through the clear of the container here. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and let me know what you think. Otherwise, it was great seeing you. Thank you.